Hello everybody, this is Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. We're going to be reading the Torah portion for this coming Shabbat. We're going to be reading the 53rd reading in this year's cycle, which is Deuteronomy 32:1 to Deuteronomy 32:52. Pretty much the whole Torah portion is one chapter, the chapter of the 32nd of Deuteronomy. And this is the Torah portion before next one, which is the last one, and then we start the cycle all over again. And up to this time, Moses has been leading the people out of Egypt into the Promised Land. He was told that he's not going to go into the Promised Land, but he will get to see it from a distance, which he was able to. But Joshua was the one that was commissioned to go and take the children into the Promised Land. And Moses wanted the children to remember all the instructions and guidelines and everything that they needed to remember, the new generation that was going into the Promised Land, so they don't make the same mistakes as the previous generation, which we saw because of their lack of faith, their disobedience. None of them went except Joshua and Caleb into that Promised Land, and that even included Moses. So Moses decided the best way I can get this message out where people remember it is through a song. I know somebody, she doesn't even know English, but she could sing a whole song in English. Songs and music does something to the words. It makes you remember them. My 4-year-old can remember a whole song on the radio now. She could sing those words, and she sings. She doesn't know what all the words mean, but she could sing it. She remembers it. And then later on, as she gets to understand what those meanings are, she still remembers the songs. The point is, when you have music, memory goes along with it if it's sung the right way and so on. And so this is what the instructions were. Moses said, and we get off on the last week's Torah portion. We'll go back here to the last chapter of Deuteronomy 31. He said, Then Moses spoke to the hearing of the whole community of Israel the words of this song from beginning to end. And here is the song in this week's Torah portion, Deuteronomy 31:1 starting, and it goes on. Well, since it's a song, I think I should sing it instead of read it, so you kind of get an idea. No, I'm not going to sing it. Folks, I am not a singer, but I will read it, and I want you to understand Moses was singing this, and he wanted the people to notice. It says, Hear, O the heavens, as I speak. Listen, earth, to the words of my mouth. May my teaching fall like rain. May my speech condense like dew, like the light rain on blades of grass, or showers on growing plants. And rain, when it comes down, it comes everywhere. It's touching everything. And that's what he wants these instructions to do, to come down and touch every single thing, just like the rain does. We go into verse 3. For I will proclaim the name of our wonderful Creator. Come declare the greatness of our Elohim. The rock, his word is perfect, for all his ways are just. A trustworthy Elohim who does no wrong. He is righteous and straight. Now think about verse 4 here. And just sing that verse to remember the song. That verse is so powerful. The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are just. A trustworthy Elohim who does no wrong. He is righteous and straight. That is the most important thing we need to remember. If we can remember those few things there, again, he's a rock, his work is perfect in all, not some, but all his ways, and they're just. A trustworthy Elohim who does no wrong. He is righteous and straight. That is imperative to remember. In verse 5 it says, He is not corrupt. The defect is in his children, a crooked and perverse generation. You foolish people, so lacking in wisdom, is this how you repay our wonderful Creator? He is your Father who made you his. It is he who formed you and prepared you. Remember how the old days were. Think of the years through all the ages. Ask your father. He will tell you. Your leaders too. They will inform. When Elion gave each nation heritage, when he divided the human race as he assigned the boundaries of the peoples according to Israel's population, but our Creator shared with his own people, Jacob, his allotted heritage. So our Creator had these chosen people. I mean, he's telling us here, think about what has happened. Remember this song, but think about this. He's already said our Creator is perfect, but it is the children that were corrupt. And he goes on to warn them and tell them in verse 10 here, He found his people in a desert country, in a howling, wasted wilderness. He protected him and cared for him. guarded him like the pupil of his eye, like an eagle that stirs up her nest, hovers over her young, spreads out her wings, and takes them and carries them as she flies. Yahweh alone led his people. No alien god was with him. It was him and him alone, in a perfect way, according to a perfect plan, led the children out of Egypt and led them into the promised land. And this is it. But the people, it says over and over again, were corrupt. But it goes on to say here in verse 13, he made them ride the heights of the earth. They ate the produce of the fields. He had them suck honey from the rocks, and olive oil from the crags, curds from the cows, and milk from the sheep, with lamb fat, rams from Bashan, and goats, with the finest wheat flour, and you drank sparkling wine from the blood of grapes. So basically, as these children were wandering the desert, it says right here what he did for them. And all their complaining that happened in their 40-year trip desert through the desert, this is what he gave them. He supplied them with the milk. He supplied them with the oil. He supplied them with the honey. He gave them all these different things. And of course, he gave them the manna. He gave them the grapes. He gave it all to them. Now here it is in verse 15. But Israel grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, thick, and gross. He abandoned our Creator, his Maker, and scorned the rock, his salvation. They roused him to jealousy with alien gods, provoked him with abominations. They sacrificed to demons, non-gods, gods that had never known, new gods that had come up lately, which your ancestors had not feared. You ignored the rock who fathered you. You forgot God who gave you birth. This is a history lesson, but also a prophecy. The same exact thing has happened today that was going on back then. People are going and straying to other gods, alien gods that we had not known before, making up new cultures and religions and everything else. He said, stick to me. But people aren't doing that. People aren't doing that today. And this is a big problem. And this is why we get so many of the curses and why we're not going to go into the promised land if we're disobedient and if we're not following the commandments. Love your God with all your heart. Have no gods before me. But we see here in verse 15 to verse 18 exactly what the children really were doing. And that's why they didn't go into the promised land. Verse 19. Yahweh saw and was filled with scorn. As his sons and daughters' provocation, he said, I will hide my face from them and see what will become of them. For they are a perverse generation, untrustworthy children. So he wasn't too happy with everything that was going on. And this is not new news. When Moses is singing this song, the people should have been ashamed of what they did and what went on. But they should also remember this so it doesn't happen again. They aroused my jealousy with a non-God and provoked me with their vanities. I will arouse their jealousy with non-people and provoke them with a vile nation. For my anger has been fired up. It burns to the depths of the pits, devouring the earth and its crops, kindling the very roots of the hills. I will heap disasters on them and use up all my arrows against them. So this is the punishment for their disobedience and their lack of faith. Fatigued by hunger, they will be consumed by fever and bitter defeat. I will send them fangs of the wild beast and the poison of the reptiles crawling on the dust. Outside, the sword makes parents childless. Inside, there is panic as young men and girls alike are slain, sucklings and graybeards together. So the young and the old are going to be slain. And this is all due to their own actions of not sticking to our Creator's plan and people trying to do it themselves and make up their own ideas. I considered putting an end to them, erasing their memory from the human race. But I feared the insolence of their enemies, feared that their foes would mistakenly think, we ourselves accomplished this, Yahweh had nothing to do with it. They are a nation without common sense, utterly lacking in discernment. If they were wise, they could figure out and understand their destiny. After all, how can one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to root? Unless their rock sells them to their enemies, unless Yahweh hands them over. For our enemies have no rock like our rock. Even they can see that. Rather, their vine is from the vines of Sodom, from the fields of Amorah. Their grapes are poisonous. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is snake poison, the cruel venom of vipers. Isn't this hidden with me, sealed in my storehouses? Now, we have to remember, folks, this was into a song. I'm not doing a good justification of the song by reading it, but these are words of a song that were sung to the people. Vengeance and payback are mine, for the time when their foot slips, for the day of their calamity is coming soon. Their doom is rushing upon them. Yes, our Creator will judge his people, taking pity on his servants, when he sees that their strength is gone, that no one is left, slave or free. Then he will ask, where are the gods, the rock in which they trusted? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offering? Let him get up to help you. Let him protect you. See how now that I am he, and there is no other God besides me. I put to death and make alive. I wound and I heal. No one saves anyone from my hand. Now, there's different genres of music, folks, and I don't know what type of music this particular song was sung to when Moses was writing this song, but I could tell you that I see a rap song out of this, and somebody could make a good one with all that he said and all that he did. I also could see a country song. So there's many different types of different music these words can go to, but the words don't change. We need to remember that, and that's the point. So here we are up to verse 40. For I lift up my hand to the heaven and swear, as surely as I am alive forever, if I sharpen my flashing sword and set my hand to judgment, I will render vengeance to my foes, repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood. My sword will devour flesh, the blood of the slain in the captivities, flesh from the wild-haired heads of the enemy. Sing out, you nations, about his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and he will render vengeance on his adversaries, and make atonement for the land of his people. And here we are coming to verse 44 of this chapter, and coming to the end of this chapter, and getting one book closer, or one story closer, one chapter closer to the end of the book of Deuteronomy and the end of the Torah. And it says here in verse 44, Moses came and proclaimed all the words of this song in the hearing of the people and of Joshua the son of Nun. When he had finished speaking all these words to Israel, he said to them, take to heart all the words of my testimonial against you today, so that you can use them in charging your children to be careful to obey the words of this Torah. For this is not a trivial matter to you. On the contrary, it is your life. That is powerful. This isn't a choice. This is your life. Through it you will live long in the land of you are crossing the Jordan to possess. So the promised land, this song is about that. And it's not an unquestioned thing. The instructions were given clearly. And this was the people's life. This was it. Verse 48, that same day Yahweh said to Moses, go up to the Ephraim range, to Mount Nebo, in the land of Moab across from Jericho, and look out over the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the people of Israel as a possession. On the mountain you are to ascend, you will die as he gathered your people. Just as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. The reason for this is that both of you broke faith with me there among the people of Israel at the Masrit Kadesh spring in the Tizin desert. You failed to demonstrate my holiness there amongst the people of Israel. So you will see the land from a distance, but you will not enter the land I am giving the people of Israel. So now, again, it clearly says why Moses was not going into the land, and basically it came down to disobedience. He struck the rock, he didn't speak to the rock, or he spoke it and struck it, but he wasn't supposed to strike the rock. That was the issue. So that is the 32nd chapter. It is a song. Read the song, know the song, and I mean, it's a lot to remember the full Torah. People say, where should they start? You know, I would start backwards and I would remember that song, and now you could see it's all laid out of what has happened and what will happen. So read that song and know it. So, you know, as a matter of fact, reading that song after every Torah portion, next cycle maybe, take time to read chapter 32 here of Deuteronomy. Read that song after each one, and hopefully by the end of next Torah cycle, you'll remember that song by heart. I guarantee your life will change if you're able to do that. So next week's Torah portion is the last Torah portion of this year's cycle, which will be the 54th reading, and it's going to be Deuteronomy 33:1 to 34:12. So you can start reading it whenever you need to, and come Shabbat, you'll be able to be ready for that. But as for this week's Torah portion, the Song of Moses, remember these words, and they're very powerful. And Moses was doing his best before he perished to let the children know the importance of these things. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video, and I'll do my best to answer them. But in the meantime, continue to study the Torah portion. And remember, the Torah is the foundation of all Scripture. So the better you know that, the better you're going to know the Word and all Scripture, and the better you're going to know the teachings of Yeshua Messiah, because he taught right from the Torah. All right, everybody, have a great day, and have a great Shabbat next week, and Shalom, Shalom.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways, Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world.